So Betsy and I are joining the stage today. We are going to talk about 4 ways to get your foot in the door for a new career. Now, I know we are very excited to jump in here. Betsy, you are a Flatiron School career coach. Can you tell us how long you've been doing that and why it's why it's such a rewarding job for you?
Well, I've been a career coach at Flatiron for a little bit over 5 years, and I also have a private practice as a career coach. And I started as a college access and success director and realized that having a college degree didn't necessarily translate into having a career. And so I moved over into that aspect of sort of the life's trajectory, and I have loved it. And it uses all of my skill set from all the things I've done in the past. I've pivoted careers many times. I started as a lawyer on Wall Street. So things have changed a lot for me over the years. I was a stay-at-home mom for a while as well. I've run the gamut. So I understand what it's like to try to get your foot in the door to a completely new career. So I'm excited to be here and sort of hope I can help everyone.
Oh, of course. I can already tell you it's going to be vastly helpful. So thank you so much for joining us. All right, so we want to talk about how you can make that successful mid-career pivot. So let's, to kind of get us started, let's talk about how you can begin that process. What do you think is the number one thing that someone needs to do to set themselves up for success if they are trying to make one of these mid-career pivots?
Sure. The very first thing is what I call focused research. And most people, research is self-explanatory, and I'll go into it a little bit, but it's the focused part that people often skip over, especially because it's counterintuitive. We've all heard, like, you just want to be open to everything, get your foot in the door, it'll be great. But that actually is exhausting. It leads to burnout, and it doesn't allow you to get the knowledge to become a really compelling candidate for any specific job in a specific industry, because you don't have deep knowledge or passion and authentic interest in that area. So I think you should focus in I'm going to try to make this very sort of tangible, step-by-step way to go about it. First, you want to focus. What you want to do is first figure out what is the job that you are looking for. And I'm not talking about job titles because they change from company to company. You want to look at the main skills that you want to do, and you want to get as niched down as you can. So for example, if you're in human resources, do you want to do recruitment? Do you want to do benefits managing? Do you want to do professional development or learning and development? Which of those skills do you want to do? Pick 1, 2, or 3. And then you want to pick what industry do you want to do it in. And again, as niche down, if you want to work in, let's say, healthcare, do you want to work for hospitals? Do you want to work for pharmaceutical companies? Do you want to work for wellness kinds of apps, and like the meditation apps and the diet and exercise apps? Do you want to work for research universities, or do you want to work like in hospitals? Like, try to get as niche down as you can. When you do that, you get to validate for yourself whether you actually like what it is you're thinking about doing. And you become, as I said before, a more compelling candidate because you have deep knowledge. Instead of applying to everything, every time you get an interview or network with somebody, you have to learn a little bit about those things. It's sort of like playing a game of whack-a-mole, and it's exhausting. So this is the first thing. And then for the research part, the way to really also dive down and do deep research is to, I think, after you've decided the first 2 things we just spoke about, is find 10 to 15 companies that you really would love to work for, whether they have jobs available at the moment or not, and start to research those companies. You're going to look to see who are the thought leaders, what are their missions, what are the obstacles, what's in the news about them. How are they positioned in the industry? There's lots of ways to find out about that. One is to listen to interviews and articles and podcasts about them, or where their leaders or executives are speaking. But there's also a little hack. If it's a public company, there's a website that's called seekingalpha.com. It's ALPHA, seekingalpha.com. And if you just look at the company, there's a tab that shows you all the news where that company is mentioned, but it also has a bunch of articles where people analyze that news. So it's a great way to really get for yourself to sort of gain understanding, but a great thing to be able to talk about when you're talking to people. And I just want to be clear, this alone can get you a job. I had one student who loved this one company and knew everything about it. He applied to a job where they required 10 years of experience and he had 10 months. But he wrote such a compelling cover letter because of all he knew about the company that they called him in and they said, look, buddy, this is not a job that's appropriate for you, but we have this other job. We see how interested you are. We were really touched by how compelling this is. And we'd like for you to interview for this other job, which he got and ended up staying there for 4 years. So even though this is a great foundation for all the other ways we're going to talk about, it just in itself can get you in the door.
Ooh, okay. Loving that. All right. So I very much like your advice to kind of drill down and try and figure out like the most niche. I think that is great advice, especially if you're trying to make this pivot, it's very easy to be overwhelmed, right? It's really, really easy to kind of start with, well, I don't like what I'm doing. I want to do that. And then very quickly be like, well, if I can't do that, then I need to broaden my scope or whatever. Do you think that there's a point when you might be drilling down too far if you're getting too niche? Is there a way to do that? Or is that not really a concern for people at this stage?
Well, you start as niche down as you can, and then you start looking for companies and opportunities. And if there's not a critical mass, then you take a step back and you make sort of your circle a little bit bigger. So if there's not enough learning and development within HR, maybe you think about, professional development and recruitment, or you add a couple of extra things, and you could do that, or you can expand your geographic search. Now, remote is such a big thing that you're not limited by that. So that by its nature, no matter how niched you are, there are a lot of companies. My guess is it's very hard to niche down too much. And if you do, it will become immediately apparent.
Okay, cool. Now, let's talk about pivoting when you are going completely off grid for you. If you are trying to pivot into a completely different role, completely different industry,
done it.
Obviously, you still need to prove that you have the right experience. How do you think candidates should go about getting that experience before they've gotten hired?
Right. So this is like the big catch-22, or we think it's the catch-22. We think in order to get a job, I need experience, but in order to get experience, I think I need a job. But that's actually not the case. There are many ways to gain experience, and we're going to talk about some of them today, but the best way, the number one way, is to volunteer. Now, everybody tells me they don't have time. Everybody tells me they don't know what to do, or they won't be able to volunteer doing what it is they want to do. And that might be true, but let me just give you some ideas of how to be creative and flexible within volunteering. And volunteering itself is so useful because it not only helps you get experience, but it helps you network, because you're going to meet people organically and easily and have something in common to talk to people about. And that in turn taps you into whatever their networks are outside of whatever organization you might be volunteering for. And it also gives you information about the industry and the arena that you're in, and for yourself to validate again, whether that's something you like. And it gives you experience, obviously. So, but a lot of people overlook the low-hanging fruit, which is in your current job, there may be a lot of opportunity to volunteer to use the skills that you think you'd like to use in whatever your new career is. So for example, and this is a true one, if you have, so I had a private client who was in publishing, was in HR, and she wanted to be in publishing. So she offered in her own company to volunteer to write some marketing material about getting people to interview with them to fill jobs. So she was able to volunteer within her own organization to do some content creation, which is really what she wanted to do, around attracting people to the HR for recruiting purposes. So that was one way that she could volunteer. Another way is I had a student who was a data science student who was also a CPA, and they were using Excel for all of their data visualization. And he said, wait, I just learned Tableau. I'm going to volunteer to change all of this stuff we have in Excel into Tableau. And it was a huge benefit, and they asked him what else he can do. And so he started integrating his data science skills into his accounting job. So there's a lot of low-hanging fruit that we don't think about. And again, outside of your job, maybe you already are involved in other community things, churches, PTAs, whatever other groups you might be already involved in. Chances are there's a place for you to volunteer your skills. And if they don't do what you want to do, but there's a place you can see where it might work, you can pitch it to them. If it's for free and it can help them, why wouldn't they take you up on it? And even if it's a total failure, it's still experience. And experience gives you data and moves you ahead to a different vantage point to move to the next step. So whether it turns out well or not, whether you're at the very beginning of a new skill and you think you can do it well or not, it doesn't matter. As long as you get to try it, see what works, see what doesn't work, and then iterate and move on, it's helpful. So those are the ways to be creative. The other way is to be flexible. So I'm going to give you my own example. Is when I was a stay-at-home mom and I wanted to get back into career and education coaching, and I just didn't know where to start. So I volunteered for a foster residence for parenting and pregnant teenage girls that was in my neighborhood that I knew about because I donated money. And I said, I want to volunteer. What can I do? And they said, can you knit? Now, not a knitter, not creative. I do know how to knit. I said, I know how to knit, but I'm not a knitter. And it turns out they had a knitting club. And they said, why don't you come to the club and teach some of the girls how to knit? Just the starting point, which is all I can do. So I said, all right, fine. I was flexible when I got there, but I knew, oh, girls sitting around knitting, they're going to be chatting. So of course I can chat to them about all of these things that I wanted to talk about and also learn, how can I be helpful? In what ways can I be helpful? What can't I do? Are there skills I need, or is there information I need in order to be able to help them? And sure enough, the girls liked it and word got out and the organization got a grant. And I then went on to create and facilitate workshops in career and education, which then led to a whole bunch of other stuff that I did after that. And that was after being home with my kids for 10 years and doing nothing except for being home with my kids for 10 years. So that also alone can get you a job and give you the experience to move on. So you want to try to be flexible and creative. So that's my pitch for volunteering.
I love that. And I love that it was a skill that you never, I mean, I don't know about you, but I never would have thought like, oh, I want to get into HR, I want to get into career coaching. I better know how to knit first because that's absolutely fundamental. Like, but I think that's wonderful, right? Like,
and it was like such a backwards way of getting into it, but it works.
Yeah, no, I think that's so cool. And it really does show and illustrate that like, you don't know what skills you have that might be valuable. You don't know what skills that you might have that could get you that foot in the door. So yeah, trying to be open to those opportunities, even if they don't look like what you thought they were going to look like, right. Yeah, absolutely. Take it, take that chance.
And it's even if you have those skills that you do have, is there a way I can use them in this unorthodox place where you wouldn't think that that's how you can use them?
Yeah. I mean, think about it, y'all. I got hired to be a talent advocate for Power to Fly. I was the person that was like looking around to get people, get profiles that would suit different events we were hosting and all that kind of stuff. And now I do this. So like, just, you never know where that your skills or your job choices could be taking you. So, I just keep that in mind, y'all. We are almost none of us on a linear path.
Right. And the job world is changing so quickly, we can't even anticipate the jobs that will be available. So you want to just concentrate on the skills and strengths you have that energize you, not the ones that deplete you, no matter how good you are at them. Right. So you want to sort of find that intersection. What am I good at? And what do I love? And how can I use them in almost any venue? And you can find joy and fulfillment in a lot of different places that you are not thinking about when you think of sort of mainstream jobs.
Yeah, of course. It very much reminds me of that Japanese principle of ikigai that's been very popular lately. It's really interesting. Look it up. It's IKIGAI, I believe. But it's basically about trying to find your purpose, and it's at the center of what you love to do, what you're good at, what the world needs, and what you can get paid for. Yes. And so it's like trying to find that center thing, which is never how I was ever told, like, what do you want to do when you grow up? No one ever talks about like these different factors. But I think that's, it kind of reminds me of what you're saying about like trying to figure out what you can do that you can then make a career out of. Like, and I love the focus on like what charges you up instead of what depletes your power. Just because
it's sort of the sweet spot of success is like just what you described. Yes. I didn't know that's what it was called though.
I like it though. Yeah.
I love it. Yeah.
Okay. So let's talk about candidates who are in the middle of a pivot. How can they get in front of companies and really get their application read? I feel like this is something that we hear from in terms of ageism in the hiring process. We hear it when it comes to, but like we hear it when it comes to like the ATS systems that don't, that don't let people through, that kind of thing. So what do you recommend for people who are having trouble, kind of getting seen by these companies?
Okay, I'm going to say this and everybody's going to hate it, but I'm going to say it. And you all know it. It's networking, right? Networking. Everybody hates the whole thought of networking. They feel it's salesy, it's imposing, it's inauthentic, it feels weird, it's awkward. But I am telling you, I'm going to give you some statistics about why this is so important. And then I'm going to give you some ideas of ways to do it that don't feel so icky. So first of all, there were millions of reports about the number of jobs. Anywhere from 40% to 80% of the available jobs are gotten through networking alone. So even if we go with 60%, let's split the difference, 60% of jobs are gotten through networks. That means that they may not even be posted on a job list. And even if they are, they only look at people that are referred in by other people that they know. And we all sort of know that, right? But the more interesting statistic is that 90% of job seekers only apply online.
Yeah.
So if you're the 10% that decide to network, you have available to you 60% of the jobs. So I like those odds. Those are good odds. I might be willing to be uncomfortable for those odds, number one. Number two is the reason that most people apply only online is the same reason why you don't want to network. It's uncomfortable, and those people aren't willing to do it. So they apply to a million jobs. And the problem is that's not the best way to get a job. And if you think about it, if you network from the employer side, you have the perspective of the employer on this yourself. If you want a doctor, you're not going to go on Yelp and look at 10,000 doctors' profiles and call 5,000 of them and then figure out which one is best. You're going to ask your 5 best friends, who's your doctor? And then you're going to hear what they have to say about their doctors, the pros and cons, and then you're going to look them up and maybe you'll talk to a couple and you'll make a decision from that. So that's you as the employer. So an employer is just a person, and that's how they feel. They don't want to read 5,000 resumes. They want 5 people who people internally or people they know have already sort of done that first level of vetting, that this is someone you can trust or like, right? Yeah. So that's why it's so important. And you even know that because you probably operate in your own life that exact same way, right? You probably came to Power to Fly because somebody sent you emails and it took you a while to decide of all the organizations in the world, this is the one. Somebody, sent you a recording or told you they had a great experience. That's how we as humans live our lives so that we have time to do things. Otherwise, we would never be able to make a decision. We would have no time. Yeah. So this is why networking is so, so important. Now, if you've started with focused research, when you talk to people, you have something to say. If you are networking with people in the industry that you have chosen about the kinds of roles that you decided you'd like to do, then if you've done your research, you have stuff to say to them that's interesting to them and will actually help you learn more to both validate your own interests, which I keep coming back to, because if you don't like your job, it doesn't matter how much they pay you, you're never going to be happy. I've been in that situation. Yes. You want to be happy. And you want to validate that for yourself, but also you want to be able to talk to them so that then they feel comfortable in advocating for you, right? And they will be in a position where they can say something about you that is compelling to the person to whom they might be advocating for you because you have some knowledge or skill or interest or passion. Retention is very important to employers. Some of the most money they spend in HR is the churn of people who are just coming there to get their foot in the door and then leave. If you could convince them that you are truly interested in them and you have people speaking on your behalf, they will be great here. They are not going to get here and then leave after 2 seconds. Then you have a better chance of being hired no matter what your skill level. They would rather onboard and train you if they know that you're going to stay and you have authentic interest in what they do than somebody with a higher level of skill who's looking for the next available opportunity and they're going to leave. Cost them almost 60% of your first year salary to recruit and onboard you. So it's a very big deal. So that networking helps to sort of speak to that very important sort of pillar in what employers look for when they hire. So going back to the 10 to 15 companies that you looked at, that you want to look at when you were doing your research, a great way to start besides people you know and people whom you know, you already know, I'm sure you all know that already, is to go back to those 10 to 15 companies, go on LinkedIn and look at the people, go to the people tab and see who works there. You want to try to reach out to all of the people who work in the department that you think you want to work in, or to anyone that you might know or have a bond with, like they went to your school, they grew up in your neighborhood, they worked someplace else that you worked, something like they had a career that you used to have, and now they're switching to this, career pivoters. And you want to start to reach out to those people. And the beauty of that is because you've done your research and you know about the company, you have something to say when you reach out to them. You'll have an interesting conversation when you do talk to them, and then they feel comfortable. And almost always this happens, they will recommend other people for you to talk to within their company, and also just within their network in general, even outside of your company, which is sometimes how you bring other companies into the fold of what might be a target company for you. So it's a domino effect. So as soon as you can get a couple of people interested in talking to you, you expand, and that really expands your network. So again, you can also, again, another example, like somebody wanted to work in a specific company. He talked to everybody who worked there. He talked to everybody who worked with people who worked there, which is also a very interesting thing, right? And he spoke with people who used to work there and went on to other places. And sure enough, one Friday night, he was at a party, I'll never forget this. He got a call saying, hey, somebody just quit in a position that we think you would be great for. Send your resume and a cover letter and I'll send you a reference as well. So he left the party Friday night and he sent it in. And then he called everybody. I hope he waited till Saturday morning, called all the other people he'd been talking to who it sounded like they would be willing to help him, and told them, could you put in a good word for me? Sure enough, Monday morning, the HR person called him and said, listen, I don't know who you are, but I have 10 of your resumes on my desk. Why don't you come and talk to me? And sure enough, he got the job. And this was a very competitive position with people who generally do a whole bunch of very specific things before they get to this position. He had done none of them. This was a career pivot for him. It was a complete career pivot, but he had made himself so compelling to these other people who had gravitas that the person who was hiring would listen to. And he ended up, they didn't even interview anybody else. They interviewed him. He was great. They didn't have to even list the job ever. And he got the job. So this, again, alone can, like each of these things I'm telling you, work alone. Of course, they work better in concert. Yeah. But even just alone, pick one thing of what we talk about today and go deep, and that will work.
Yeah, of course. Okay, we're getting some great questions in the chat thread, so I'm going to try and get to as many of those as we can while we're going through here. But if you have a question and you'd like to ask, please feel free. Put them into the group chat. It's on the right-hand side of your screen. So we would love to get any questions answered that you have to ask. All right, so Charlotte from the chat, hi Charlotte, has reached out asking, what do you recommend saying to a hiring team about having been recently laid off, especially if it was due to company downsizing? I got caught up in the startup purge and I'm worried that it's making recruiters ghost me.
I think first of all, even if you, networking again is like the best way, because then they don't have to worry that you got fired for nefarious reasons. If you got laid off, especially during COVID or especially during downsize, I would just say it. Yeah. There's no shame in that. That's happened all over the place to many people in every industry. I don't think anybody would hold that against you. And I don't think that's the reason they're ghosting you at all, as long as you're very clear that they were downsizing or it was COVID and people got laid off and they haven't, regrouped their attention. I don't think that's a problem, especially in this moment in time. But networking will definitely help you to sort of underline that fact that it wasn't you, it's them. So yeah. You want to add that. But I would be honest about it. I don't think it's ever good to lie. You always want to say the truth in the best possible way, but you never want to lie because it isn't authentic to you. And then ultimately, it always comes back to bite you in some way, shape, or form. So I would not lie, just be authentic.
Well, then you have to remember what you said, which is like,
yes. So
like, if you're gonna I can barely remember I can barely remember the true facts, like things I did 25 minutes ago. Like, let's not add false things in here.
Exactly.
Charlotte had also asked, where and how do you recommend saying it? So is this something that you should put, like tack onto your resume? Like, I was only here for 2 months, company downsized? Or is that something that you should deal with in maybe a cover letter or in like a call or an interview?
I actually think that unless you have a really long gap, if it's a couple of months, I wouldn't put it anywhere and just see if it comes up. A lot of people, it takes them a while to get a new job, and it's not crazy to think that people have downtime. One other great sort of hack is that if you do have downtime, is to use it to learn a new skill. Take a course, get a certificate, join a mastermind, do something, and then say, I was laid off and I'm looking for a new job. And in the interim, here's what I'm doing to upskill or reskill myself to make this change or to do this. Or I was laid off and I've taken this opportunity to sort of pivot. Here's what I've done to prepare myself so I could hit the ground running. So I've used this time. So I think not only being honest about the time gap you might have, but use it well when you have it, and then explain that in a cover letter if you feel you have to, or in an interview.
Okay, great. All right, let's keep moving here. We got a lot of questions from people wanting to know if they are pivoting, how they can demonstrate that they can do the job. What do you recommend if you're trying to bring that home to a recruiter? Like, yes, I know I don't have the like OJT or whatever, but I can do this and here's why.
Right. So the best way is if there's a special sauce, a magic bullet, this is it. I have almost never seen this not work to get somebody in or to the next level. And this is what I call a value add project. It's to create a project specifically for the employer that you're talking to. And what's the beauty is, if you're in an industry where you're looking at all the similar types of companies, if you do this once, just a little bit of tweaking can make it relatable to any of them. And I'm going to give you an example. And if you can't, okay, I'll give you an example first. For example, if you are a web designer, do a mock-up of their website in a way that you think would be more attractive, or that would correct some issues you think, and send it into them. If you are looking for a writing position, write an article for them that they might want to publish in the style and with the content that's relevant to them, right? Or you can, if you can't actually do it, like, you can give them a proposal of something that you could do. For example, I once had an event planner. You can't actually do an event for somebody if you're not hired, but she had an idea given their target customer and the kinds of things they had and the size of the company. She guessed, and she said, I think this event would be very engaging to your customers. This is how I would do it. This is the budget. Here are pictures of how I would decorate the room, of the vendors I would use. Here's the budget. Here's what I think the goals should be. Here's what I think the results would be. And she put it into a PowerPoint presentation and sent it to them. So that person got hired also, just want to say. But those kinds of things are really, really helpful. And if you can't do any of those things, pick the skill that you think you need the most or is most important to them, and interview experts who have that skill, and then write a blog or write an article and then send them the article about that. So at least they see that you know what you're talking about when it comes to that skill, even if you yourself can't produce it in the moment. And then added extras, obviously, you get to network with the people with whom you are interviewing. And you are learning something and validating everything for yourself. Again, all of these things can work alone, but when you show somebody you can do the job, they no longer care how you came to know it. So they don't care if you have traditional experience or whether you went to 5,000 schools and have certificates and diplomas. They don't care. All they need to know is that you can do it. And once they do that, the gap between your resume and the job they want you to do is closed. There's no leap of faith. And it's actually, I suggest people do this even if they are not pivoting, and even if they have fabulous resumes that are right on point. This is still the quickest way to convince somebody to hire you.
Okay, excellent. All right, we have about 4 minutes left, and I know that we wanted to hear a little bit from your colleague Ray from admissions. So Ray, we'll get to you in just a moment, but be ready here. I had one last question that I wanted to ask.
Sure.
Everything that I hear, I get to talk to a lot of people who make career pivots, and it sounds very intense, a lot of work. I have done it once, but it was years ago, and I was not coming off of much of a break. So if you are somebody who's in this in this pivot process and it is just dragging on you, what can people do to to really make this a little bit less arduous?
So this is what I call the belief to-do list. Picture who you would be and what you would be doing when you had the job. What are the things you think would take up your day? Obviously, you think you will enjoy that because that's why you're pivoting to that. And then of those things, pick one or two and put it on your to-do list for this week. And it helps you believe that you are actually that person doing it. That a lot of the reason we have trouble and why it's a slog is we think we're imposters. We think we're not going to get it. We think we don't know it enough. We don't feel like that person. So who's going to hire us? It all has sort of that like, this is never going to end well feeling. So this belief to-do list allows you to take the things you think you will enjoy doing, do them now so you actually enjoy it. And these are the very things that will also prepare you to be the most compelling candidate when you are interviewing. So if you are I'm really just like the examples. If you want to be an event planner, plan an event. That's what you would be doing, right? If you are a web designer, you might be talking to other web designers. So get a bunch of people who are web designers and see if you can, chat with them about something, take a course, learn a skill. You are also your most important asset always. So it's always, once you determine that you need a new skill, and don't do a skill first, do it last. Once you validate you need the skill, don't do it first because it's much more comfortable to learn something new than to network. Then it's always valuable to invest in yourself. You are your asset. Your boss is your customer. You always want to invest in your assets to make them more appealing to your customers.
Okay, very cool. All right. Betsy, I just want to say a big thank you. If you will hang tight, we'll talk to Ray,
Sure.
And then we'll say our goodbyes at the end. Ray, I wanted to get your, kind of get you on here and give you a couple minutes to talk us, give us a little bit more information about the Flatiron School. So if you want, I will yield the stage to you and you can take it away.
Thank you so much, Betsy. That was amazing. I took notes the entire time.
Oh. Wait, you don't want a career pivot. You're working on
Exactly, but I think still something to learn for everybody. And thank you all for tuning in. I'll try and be brief. I know we only have a couple minutes left, but my name is Ray and I am a senior admissions lead here at the Flatiron School. I work with the Flatiron School to enroll students who are career changers, just like many of you who want to pivot from literally anything and become software engineers or data scientists or cybersecurity engineers or product designers. I have talked to so many people whose career took them in one direction. They were looking to pivot into something that they were passionate about, or people who have never written a line of code in their life, but stumbled upon something for free and it ignited this passion and they realized they could do more and they could have more and they could they enjoyed learning. And that is what Flatiron School is all about. Truly, it's a program where students are able to invest in themselves and learn the skills that they need to actually be hireable. I always joke to students that the piece of paper that you get at the end of this program is the least important thing that you're learning from Flatiron School. It is all about actually teaching the skills that you need. If you want to do the job, if it's something that you're passionate about. And so that's what Flatiron School is all about. We have a ton of really cool programs and resources. We have full-time immersive options for students who want to take it full-time, part-time as well, financing options, and this vast community of people who are ready to help you change your career. So if you're ready to jump immediately right in, flatironschool.com/apply, submit an application to talk to one of us. And then I believe after this meeting, everybody will get some links in their email if you want to schedule a casual, non-committal chat with admissions or attend an event, just join the community of amazing career changers here at Flatiron School in Tech. That's my spiel.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ray. That was so cool. And yes, Ray is absolutely right. All of the contact info for the Flatiron School is going to get shared with all of you in the post-event email. So everybody that registered, if you're here watching this now, you will get an email with that information. Betsy, Ray, this has been wonderful. Thank you both so much for spending time with us. It's been absolutely great.
Thank you.
Thank you.